Forest-Chelsea is going to be rather interesting, isn't it? It's live on talkSPORT tomorrow, and your old mate Ange Postecoglou is under the cosh a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, really. If you're going to make a managerial change and then 7 games in, all right, no wins, you're potentially going to reverse that decision. You're in danger of making yourself look very foolish. But I would draw comparisons to Ange Postecoglou to Russell Martin at Rangers in some ways, in that the Forest fans didn't want him in the first place. The fact he's winless after 7 games, probably going to be winless after 8, given that they've not beaten Chelsea at home since 1997. I think the atmosphere could turn quite toxic tomorrow.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about that first. 03717 223344. Ange Postecoglou's not won since taking over at Forest. He's never won against Chelsea. That's our first stop on the football trails. It comes back this weekend to Premier League action. If you want to have your say, what's the situation if you're a Nottingham Forest fan? Because I think probably the idea of an international break is quite comforting, really, for Nottingham Forest fans. After 7 games without a win, a bit of time maybe for Ange to get his plans in place. The issue is that I think 12 players have been out on international duty. So it's been very difficult to work with what would be considered to be the first team over that period. So he probably hasn't had too many training sessions with those that he wants to keep around.
Yeah, but I think it's not about necessarily the players. It's about the principles. Ange always talks about how he scores, and he's going to be front-footed and attacking. They've scored 1 Premier League goal since he's been in. 1. And that was against Burnley in the draw. 3-0 loss to Arsenal, 1-1 draw, 1-0 loss to Sunderland, and a 2-0 loss to Newcastle. So his philosophy and his messaging now is it's got to either be changed, or he's got to have this come out and be really front-footed against Chelsea, because you'll start losing the lads as well.
But it's slightly unfair, isn't it? Because he was parachuted in during a run of 6 games in 23 days. He has got a huge squad to assess. Some of those actually that weren't being used even under Nuno Espirito Santo, because he couldn't deal with the sheer volume of new players that were coming into the squad. He's got to juggle with those. He's charged with changing the style from pragmatic to a slightly more progressive style, although that process had started to change under Nuno Espirito Santo slightly. How is Postecoglou expected to produce results in those circumstances in that time frame?
I think he's gone from FA Sam to LMA Sam. They were 2-0 up against Swansea in the League Cup and lost. They played Midtjylland at home and lost. Troy's mentioned they played Burnley and didn't manage to beat them. They played Sunderland at home and lost. Do you think Nuno Espirito Santo would have lost all those games?
No, but I think Nuno Espirito Santo had a backstory and a wealth of experience with those players, and his methods had already been communicated to them. This is a guy who's changing the way that they operate.
Yeah, and I'll give you that point. But again, what have you seen in those games that make you believe that there's change? Because sometimes you can be in a good...
I'm not saying that I believe it. I'm saying...
No, I mean, as a fan.
How can you, as the owner of that football club, determine that there is going to be this change, decide on a direction of travel, implement that change during a period where that manager cannot work with his players, and expect that change to be effected immediately?
No, I make that point, but you have made the change, right? So now you have to assess it in the situation of where you currently lie. What are you hanging your hat on? We're not scoring goals. We're conceding goals. We're losing games. As you say, we haven't found our starting 11 yet. Hasn't even found his formation yet. I can make an argument saying they don't win. They don't win until the 27th of November. They go Chelsea, Porto, Bournemouth, Man United, Sturm Graz, Leeds, Liverpool. I can make an argument they don't win until the...
So what do you do?
Well, you got to either stick or twist, haven't you? You've got to give him the time.
What do you do?
What I would do would actually look at it now and go, what's worth my pride or staying in the Premier League and staying in the competition?
You think it's that start that if they don't make a change, they might end up fighting?
I just don't have anything to follow. I'm looking at it, and again, if I'm a Forest fan, I have no skin in the game. I don't really care either way.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, what am I hanging my hat on? The manager doesn't give me anything to believe in. What I'm watching, I don't have anything to believe in. I've seen us been winning for so long. I've also seen Ange Postecoglou last year lose 22 games.
That was going to be my point. What was the selection process? What credentials did Ange really have to come in? Because
he was winning in Europe, wasn't it?
So many games.
But he was winning in
Premier
Europe,
League.
and he's not doing that.
Well, the other, I suppose, facet is that he plays a progressive style of football, which the owner wants Nottingham Forest.
But then the
employ.
talk is that if he does make a change, then Sean Dyche is a contender. So that's not progressive.
But this is more of an issue about the hierarchy of the football club rather than it is the manager.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was a needless decision. I understand there were tensions between Nuno and Evangelos Marinakis, but a lot of those tensions stemmed around the fact, and I've spoken about this, that Nuno knew that Marinakis was looking elsewhere for a potential replacement. That's why he came out and
on
gave
some of the tensions to do with
that
Edu.
press conference. Edu as well. But it's all unnecessary. You know, Forest fans have just had the season of their lifetime, the best season since the 1990s. They're back in Europe. And all that feel-good factor has very quickly been taken away by the decisions the board have made. They've not even sold out all their tickets for their next home game in Europe.
So, what do you do next? Do you pull the ripcord? Is it already emergency time for Nottingham Forest? Forest fans, 03717 223344. That's the number to call. The big game this weekend for us is 12:30 tomorrow, Nottingham Forest against Chelsea. It's live on talkSPORT. Troy, you've been at a club where a manager's future is never really secure. Explain what will be happening in the Nottingham Forest dressing room with all this talk about Ange Postecoglou and the possibility of him being replaced this early.
Great question. There'll be sections of groups. So there'll be a group now that's going, right, we owe the manager, we've got to put our performance better and be, and I would, if just characterise, I'd say someone like Yates, Elliot Anderson, those boys will be the ones driving it, go, right, we've let ourselves down, never mind the manager. There'll be a group of people that are not really involved or playing, so they're going, well, he's gone next, and, hopefully the next one will be my turn up. And then there'll be some in the middle that the leaders at the front have to drag along and be like, right, come on then, because if they start the game well, the guys in the middle will go with the front ones. If they start the game poorly, they all go to the back. So it's a real weird time, a really interesting time. The players and the characters that you pick in these matches, I always think are, the most important now. It's not necessarily your best players that play, but it's the ones that are going to be 7, 8 out of 10 each week. You got to stick those boys in.
In terms of Nottingham Forest and their pursuit of other targets, should the relationship with Ange Postecoglou come to an end, what more whispers have you been hearing or fielding this week?
I was to say, Sean Dyche is the big one, and that would very much be a change of style and maybe an appointment with an eye on a potential relegation battle, which I don't think Forest fans necessarily saw coming. Brendan Rodgers is intriguing. I know it's difficult because Steve Cooper was never really welcomed at Leicester because of the Nottingham Forest connection, but I am told that he's someone that long-term Marinakis potentially would like to bring in, and his contract at Celtic is up at the end of the season. You've heard the same whispers that I have, that maybe Brendan will decide the time is right to leave Celtic Park for a second time, and there's going to be a few Premier League jobs available for him, but I certainly wouldn't rule out Forest.